I'm an Instagram model with over 3.2 million followers. That's right, I said it. 3.2 million. You've most likely seen my face, but my name's not important. I'm just your typical Instagram model with the body, beach photos, and elaborate shots of myself doing yoga and eating expensive meals. To be honest, I don't know anyone that has that many friends in real life, so I often find the idea of followers a false sense of being better than everyone. It doesn't make you more capable or more intelligent. It makes you famous because people worship you just because of what you represent, which is a life that they don't have. Everyone lives vicariously through you, and that can often come with a price. When I sit back and really ponder it, it's a fantastic thing thinking about where all these people may be from. I've had people comment on my photos from as far away as New Zealand and even Dubai. I get photographed in numerous places. I never really meet that many people. I'm usually just watching from my room, being waited on hand and foot. I've been seen with some of the world's most elite movie stars, though. I get gifts sent to me all the time, but I don't keep track of them. I have someone else that does all that for me. With each hashtag and photo of some random product, I get packages sent to me just by promoting them. The companies then send me new products so that I'll help with advertising. I have received more nail polishes and blushes than I can even count, and I've used maybe one of them. It can be hard to keep up with sometimes, though, and even overwhelming, because I now have my face plastered on everyone's phones in the form of online ads. You've all seen those in-app pop-ups with some model acting as casually as she can, wearing a scarf, saying click here or shop here. Primarily, that's where I pop up. I'm as famous as any supermodel, and I've never walked a runway. I guess I never really thought about modeling as a career, but like every other part of my life, it just fell onto my lap, so to speak. I was around 15 when I hit a growth spurt and developed into the young woman that I am now. It's how I met my friend Julia. Well, friend and mentor, who was also beautiful and tall, and I aimed to be just like her. I met Julia when I was at some concert with a guy I was dating at the time. I'm sure he was too old for me, at 19, but that's just how girls can be when they're barely 15, and you look older than you are. It's like you begin to take on that personality of the character that you're playing in your head. You allow yourself to be a little dangerous, and damn the consequences. I can recall it like it was yesterday. The sun had been beating down on the crowd since sometime around noon, and it was now close to 2 p.m. Between the smell of sweat, suntan lotion, body odor, the need to breathe for a moment became overwhelming. I left my date, who told me, "Hey babe, make sure you grab me another beer." And then I made my way slowly to the concession stand. It took a long while to find the beginning of the line, which was like running into a continuous wall with no escape. I finally reached the beginning of that line, and as I stood there in the long line trying to order another couple of beers, I caught a girl staring at me. I looked over, and she smiled at me, commenting on my blouse. "Love the shirt. Is it Gucci?" "Nah, it's a knockoff, but good eye," I said to her. "I'm Julia." She held out her hand, and I noticed the line of tiny words wrapped around her arm, as though it were a vine. She smiled at me then, and I reached out and shook her hand, and there was an instant bond between us. She made me feel relaxed instantly, and I noticed she was genuinely interested in what I had to say. "You think anyone here's ever heard of deodorant?" I asked her. She laughed at my joke as though it were hysterical and shook her head. "Highly doubtful. I mean, just look at that guy," she said, pointing out a man who was a little large around the middle and sweating profusely. I laughed too, and she put her dark blonde hair behind her ear. I noticed a scar that went from one end of her neck to the other side. I didn't want to stare at it, so I looked down at her shoes, which I knew were designer. "I love the shoes," I said. "Thank you. I got them from this guy I know who works for Vogue." "Do you model or something?" I asked her. "I wouldn't say professionally, but I have a large social media presence. She lit a cigarette, puffed on it, and then handed it to me. I looked at it, and then we got our drinks and went back to the crowd of people for the next band. I had forgotten all about my date and was just hanging out with Julia, watching the bands and talking about what we wanted to do with our lives. She had this way of making you feel like everything was right with the world, and I didn't want to leave her side. She was instantly the older sister I had never had. We had this natural chemistry, and from that moment on, we were completely inseparable the rest of the night, forgetting about our dates. We hung out for a bit until it was time to leave the concert. We met up the next day to go shopping at the mall. Julia revealed to me that she sometimes modeled for a photographer friend of hers by the name of Doug. You would like his work. Oh yeah? Why is that? I asked her. Let's just say he's very different from other photographers. He has a studio, but it isn't like a studio. It's more like a universe. Oh, do you have any photos of yourself that he took? I asked her, genuinely intrigued. Oh yeah. She took out her phone and scrolled through it for a moment, stopped, and then turned the phone around to me. Here's one we shot when we went to Miami. I looked down at the photo and it was of her in a bikini with her arms raised to the sky. I recalled thinking how cool her life must be, and I wished I could be like Julia for that brief second. Then she looked down at me and got a serious look on her face. You know, you could be a model. You're tall, thin, and every bit as beautiful. I'm shocked you never thought about it before. I felt instantly shy then and looked down, avoiding her gaze. I'm far from any model, more like the girl that helps with props. Oh my gosh, don't be ridiculous. You know, I have to see Doug tomorrow anyway. You should come and meet him. I'm sure he would love to take your photo. Then you can post it online, and it'd be fun to see everyone's reactions. We can do your hair and your makeup. I don't know. I sighed. Oh, live a little, Julia said, laughing. No, okay, I'm sold, I said. The rest of our time at the mall we spent buying outfits that I would wear for my photo session with Doug. It was fun, I had to admit, and the more I thought about it, the more excited I got. The next day, Julia picked me up in some fancy car, and we drove to Doug's house. On our way there, we listened to music and talked about what it would be like for me to get photographed for the first time. Just act natural. I promise it isn't scary once you get used to it. Afterward, we'll all go get something to eat. She smiled, looking at me through pink and black sunglasses. My nerves now subsided. We pulled into Doug's studio parking lot. It was basically a large house with a garage attached. We knocked on Doug's front door, and after what seemed an eternity, he finally answered. He stared at me there for a long moment before finally inviting us in. He wasn't bad looking, tall, dark hair to his shoulders, dark brown eyes. He looked young, but he was at least 40. The three of us hung out for a bit, and he offered me a beer. I willingly took it because, being young, I wanted to seem older than I actually was. I took it, and then we talked about what sort of photos I wanted to be taken of me. Julia helped me into a pair of jeans we had bought the day before at the mall, and I wore a red shirt. Julia helped me with my makeup then too, and then Doug took out his camera. Doug took some basic shots of me, and then Julia joined me to make me feel more comfortable. He had us walk around like we were both on a runway, and then Julia left the room, and it was just Doug and me. He had me change into a bathing suit, and then took photos of me with a backdrop of a beach. With the lighting and angles, it looked completely real. To anyone that didn't know I was standing in front of a backdrop, it created the perfect illusion. Julia laughed, coming in the room, holding a second beer in her hand. She handed it to me, and then she began to leave the room again, saying she had to grab something. Slowly but surely, something began to come over me. I started to feel lightheaded and nauseated. I told Doug I wasn't feeling well. "Here, sit down. Lie on the sofa. I'll get Julia." Doug helped me over to the sofa, putting my feet up onto a pillow. I found myself slowly closing my eyes as I watched him leave the room. Before I knew it, I was out cold. I awoke to what must have been a few hours later to a room void of all light and color. I stood up and then had to sit back down, still feeling the after effects of whatever made me so incredibly sleepy. I reached at my side to see if my phone was in the pocket of my shorts, but it was gone. I walked over to the door of the room I was in, and it was locked. I looked around to see if I had dropped my phone, but then I felt something. I heard it first, but the sound didn't register. When I looked down, there seemed to be something attached to my wrist. A thin chain was locked around my wrist, and when I realized it, I panicked and started to beat on the door. Julia, unlock the door right now! Please, help me! Open this door!" I heard keys then, unlocking the door I was standing in front of, and then I heard the door handle slowly move as Doug walked in and flipped on the lights. "Shh. Everything is gonna be all right. Don't freak out, okay? Where's Julia? I want to leave." I looked up at him, pleading. He just looked at me and smiled, caressing my face. "You are gorgeous, my pet." He kissed me on the cheek then, and my wet tears did not seem to bother him in the least. I knew then and there that this was going to be the end of one life and the beginning of another. That was a few years ago now. Boy, have things changed. You see, I go all over the world now, thanks to Doug. I've been to Milan, Miami, Paris, London, and even Cleveland. He treats me to expensive dinners and room service whenever I need it. Only, I'm not allowed to eat too much. "You don't want to get fat," he says to me. You see, I have to look good for all the photos he takes of me. So sometimes, I don't need it all. And when I look too thin, he photoshops my face onto other frames and bodies. That's how I stay camera ready. So you see, I've been everywhere in the world, and I've seen everything that the world has to offer. It has just been through the lens of a camera. You know, it's amazing what you can do with a camera, some props, good lighting, and Photoshop. You can travel thousands of miles with just one clip, snip, and snap. I can assure you it's easier than it sounds. I often wonder why Julia never came back and what happened to her. I wonder if I was her way out. I sometimes hope that he'll let me out, so that I can find my own replacement. Who knows? Maybe I will when I get too old for this. Although Doug says I'm his favorite pet, because I never put up a fight. Although I did smell a very foul odor a few days after my arrival here. It was coming from Doug's living quarters. And then one day the smell vanished, and I didn't see him for hours. When I did see him, he smelled like bleach. I wasn't thinking about it too much at the time, but upon reflection, it does make me wonder. I don't know. But all in all, things are going very well for me in the world I live. Out there, in planet internet. I also know you should never be too careful to believe everything you see. Nothing is ever quite what it seems. I'll tell you what I know. I'm an Instagram model with 3.2 million followers.